We're going to be looking mostly at the ground floor today, what are called spring ephemerals. That's probably an area where we don't have a lot of Myaamia words and cultural information for some of the smaller plants. But I think our goal here today is for creating that awareness, just simply being aware of what's coming up, that these oftentimes spring ephemerals, they come up, it's very short, they're just in bloom for a couple of weeks and then they're gone. So cheki away up yako, uwishi.
The Myaamia are not a people of the past. They are a living people with a past. Their history includes periods of relative peace, but also periods of violence and forced change that led to the loss of language and culture. Though the tribe's headquarters is in Oklahoma, their bond to their traditional homelands, or Myaamionki in the Midwest, runs deep. Today, Myaamia people are working to reclaim lost knowledge and pass it on to the next generation, including to Myaamia students who attend Miami University.
The little white flowers.
Aya, makunzakwa wenzwaane, nila Myaamikwia, mekemwaane Myaamia Neepwaantiinki kaninge. Hi, my name is Kara Strauss. I am a citizen of the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma, and I work at the Myaamia Center at Miami University. I grew up in Huntington, Indiana, which is in Myaamia traditional homelands. So I always grew up knowing that I was Miami. I'm not sure I really knew exactly what that meant, but I started to explore that more deeply when I went to college. But I always knew the thing that was really interesting to me when I was in college was supporting the other Native students. And so I had this idea that eventually I would go back to school and I would do, student affairs work with Native students who need a different kind of support than most other students on a campus. That might mean students who come all the way from a reservation, where this is almost like, being in a foreign country and not understanding a university, all the way to urban Native students who had no connection to their community.
Unini tawani, wenda mangwe, e yunzal wakisha, tepengoka iwaikwe, e yunzal wakisha. Apushe welo. E yunzal wakisha. Oops, I just broke a branch off of it. Here, take this with you. Well, you're probably seeing a lot of big changes on this one, right? So one of the things we want to talk about is the fact that this is kind of one of our hidden gems on campus. When these bloom, we're very quickly going along, eating them, and they're absolutely scrumptious, great on salads, kind of sweet tasting. And so nobody's really looking. If you want to come over and grab a little bit and try it, I encourage you to do so, okay? Wingangengo, Isha, Wingangengo, it's good to eat. So a couple of things, we haven't really spent a lot of time engaging with plants in this way, and hopefully while you're here we'll do more of that. But always kind of be aware that do you have enough knowledge before you consume a plant? Where is it growing? Is it in a high chemical place? All of those things need to be considered. But this is a pretty much a harmless flowering tree, which is really good in the spring. So if you get caught on campus and the grounds crew yells at you, just blame it on the Myaamia Center. It's okay.
The thing to look at while we're there, we were just here a few weeks ago, right? So think about what were things looking like at that point, and we're trying to think about the changes that are happening all around us at this point in the year, right?
Aya, meme shikyo wenzwane nila Myaamia metosenia. Hello, my name is George Ironstrack. I'm a citizen of the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma and the Assistant Director of the Myaamia Center here at Miami University. The story of the Miami Tribe begins with what we call our oldest story, and that story begins Myaamionki Neepwaantiinki jisakachwe chike he hon jisakachwe wache sakiwe ongi itamenge. At first, the Myaamia came out of the water, and the place where they came out is called the coming out place. And this describes our arrival in what is today South Bend, Indiana. Our arrival after a long journey from some unknown origin. We built a village there on the Coming Out River, or the St. Joseph, Michigan. And then from that, we left that village and eventually began building villages in the Wabash River Valley to the south. And the Wabash River, Wapashikisipiwi, is the heartland river of our homelands. So that river, all the way down to Vincennes, had multiple Myaamia-speaking villages. And then the rest of our homelands, which today includes western Ohio, all of Indiana, all of Illinois, southern Michigan, and southern Wisconsin, the rest of that land was used for hunting and gathering and trade.
It's a very large geographical area, but that's the place that we would have depended on to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to trade with other tribal nations.
Myaamionki, our homelands, is that it was our economic base. We got everything we needed from the land to live together as a family.
So we've got two flowers here that are white. And then there's a white flower right there. And those are the spring beauties. It's not very big, but it's very, very edible. And so our ancestors used to harvest these in great quantities. But think about how many you'd have to dig up. I've seen whole hillsides full of these, but even that would probably be quite a bit of work to get enough, of an actual substance. But it was a known food in the spring. I walked right by that. Good eye. So this is our next plant. This is called Jack in the Pulpit. There's a little spike in the middle. The leaf covers it. I believe these are poisonous. This is not something you want to consume. Once you've seen this, Jack in the Pulpit, you'll know it every time you see it. This leaf right here kind of has a heart shape to it. Any guesses?
Not wild ginger, isn't it?
Yes, wild ginger. Right on. Yep. Very common, pretty much all over the place. It is edible. So wild ginger, you can dig up the roots. Again, most root plants you usually don't harvest until the leaves are done and the nutrients go back into the root system.
How come we don't have a Myaamia word for it?
Well, I'm sure there was. Either we haven't found it yet because of our vast archive, or it wasn't recorded. So, could be either or. There's a lot of gaps in the record that way.
If you look at the period of time shortly before the arrival of Europeans, village life was kind of separated into two equitable and mutually responsible domains. One was the domain of women, and women's life was centered in the village. Homes were built and constructed by women, maintained by women, and you could say owned by the women and families. Life in the village then centered on women who were the heads of households. The children typically resided with the women's families. The women were the farmers and were responsible for processing agriculture, processing what was produced through gathering out in the surrounding landscape, and also processing meat and hides from hunting. So their responsibilities were very much inside the village. Each village also had a women's council that was a part of the political decision-making process of the village. And then outside the village was the responsibility of men. So Myaamia men were responsible for hunting. They were responsible for trade and diplomacy with other nations. And then also they were responsible for warfare. And that kind of equitable balance in responsibilities is what defined a village.
Myaamia means downstream people. The tribe's largest historical towns were located along the Wabash River Valley and the Maumee River Valley in what is today the state of Indiana.
Back in the day, we didn't have interstates. The waterways were the way you got around. To go from Montreal down to New Orleans, you had roughly about a 13-mile portage. And that was just south of the village of Kikaionge. And you would portage from the Neepwaantiinki River over to the Little Wabash River, 13 miles. And what that did is it made Kikaionge kind of a very important place, because people were traveling all sorts of directions and they would stop, and it was an opportunity to trade. Aya, Alumpka Kuma, Wenswaane, Nila Myaamia, Nehe Mishingo Meshe, Ewe Makake. Aminatoani Kikaionge. Hello, my name is Doug Pikangi. I'm a citizen of the Miami tribe of Oklahoma, and I also work for the tribe in Indiana in Fort Wayne. And what I do for the tribe there is community programming, where I create opportunities for tribal members up there to learn some culture and language related to the tribe. Well, the village was located to the north of where the rivers converge, and today there is a water filtration plant there. Now today, that whole area is fully developed. There are homes that are located in the old village site as well as the old cemetery. There are over 800 tribal citizens that live in the state of Indiana alone, with most of them living generally along the Wabash River and up in the old village area of Kikayonge. That's why I'm here, to help them in their cultural and language education, of reclaiming that knowledge, picking up those threads of knowledge again and bringing them back to their families.
From a Myaamia perspective, everything in your life really was based on ecology. There is no Myaamia word for outside. There is no difference between being inside and being outside. It's just your environment is part of who you are, and you are a part of your environment. And so that perspective infuses all of Myaamia knowledge, Myaamia values. And so this homeland, it is the place that we are uniquely tied to in a way that cannot be disconnected.
Every aspect of our culture connected in one way or another to the ecological rhythms of Myaamionki. The primary example of this is our lunar calendar system, the way in which we keep track of month time and the progress of a year, which directly connects to seasonal changes in our landscape, both seasonal changes in the animal populations, plant populations, and with plants that specifically are tied to agriculture.
So that might mean, a time when a certain bird is active, or a time when there is young deer being born. And that is based off of what's happening in our homelands. It cannot be tied to anywhere else on Earth. And I think when I think about it that way, you start to slowly understand how important that homeland is.
During the third lunar month, Chichakwa Kioswa, or sandhill crane moon, the large migratory birds can be seen landing by the thousands along the Wabash River Valley. This spectacle marks the transition from winter, Pipunki, to summer, Neepwaantiinki, in the Myaamia homelands. Sandhill cranes hold great significance to the Myaamia people. Other tribes are known to have referred to the Myaamia as the Twi-Twi, after the call of the sandhill crane. Today, the sandhill crane holds a prominent place on the seal of the nation.
Now I want you to turn your attention over here, and we've got a nice little cluster. It's a great big leaf that is lobed at the top. See it? It's very distinct shape. That plant's called Unza limoni, and that one we actually know pretty well. Anybody know what Unza limoni is? Bloodroot. And the reason it's called bloodroot is because you can actually pull the root up, and when you snap it, it bleeds. And it bleeds a red color, but you can make a yellow dye from it. And our ancestors did make yellow dye from that plant. That unza on the front means yellow, limone means paint. Unza limone literally means yellow paint. That word was corrupted in English to the name Salamone. How many of you are from Indiana and know where the Salamone Reserve is? Yeah, that's the origin of that name.
So this is important because this is kind of a homecoming for us to be doing this language and cultural revitalization, to be doing education with our young people here in our traditional homelands, but also to continue to have that connection to our governmental seat in Oklahoma, as well as to our diaspora who lives across the entire country.
In the 18th century, life in Myaamia villages began to change. European diseases and trade spread across North America, leading to warfare and disturbances among settlers and native people. After the American Revolutionary War, the Myaamia people began a long road of resistance as they tried to maintain ownership over their homelands in the Ohio River Valley.
In the 1790s, as settlers flood across the Appalachian Mountains into the Ohio River Valley, they convinced their federal government to go to war for them. And they do 3 different campaigns, violent campaigns, scorched earth campaigns. The first 2 are Myaamia victories with their allies, Shawnees and Delawares and other native folks. But the third, in 1794, is a United States conquest. It's a United States victory, burning dozens of villages, miles and miles of cornfields, bringing the nation to its knees really through starvation.
This long stretch of warfare really, again, decimated a lot of our villages, really led to population declines and a lot of stress in our community, and forced us eventually to sign a treaty. That treaty established peace between our nation and the newly created United States. So it brought to an end that period of warfare, but it came at a steep price, where over the next 50 years, our leaders, under great duress, not really of their own choice, were forced to cede almost the entirety of our homelands to the United States at numerous treaties that followed.